Backstage at the Riverside Arts Foundation Gala. I stirred a thin cup of coffee and straightened a borrowed tie clip. The green room smelled of floor polish and old roses. Someone had taped a schedule beside the mirror with 3 misspellings and a prayer. A door hushed shut. Familiar cologne slid in first. The kind that pretends to be cedar and announces its owner before the person arrives. A cool circle pressed my ribs. Sign the trust amendment. The voice said. À plaisant as a maître d'. I did not. I lifted my eyes to the ceiling corner, where a small camera sat with a steady red indicator. Wave to the recording. I said. This room is on the record. To the cloud. Noise followed ice cracking in glasses. Quick feet in the corridor. A short, surprised scream. If you want to know why I smiled instead of fainting, I will tell you. But first, how we got here. My name is Rowan. I am the one people hand the clipboard to. The person who remembers where the receipts live. The quiet in a room that prefers chatter. I am describing a night from my late 30s. I am older now. Softer around the eyes and surer where it counts. I have worked a long time in community grants. If you have asked parents to sign for field trip funds and coaxed foundations to release emergency dollars, you learn patience. You learn to leave a clean paper trail. Family teaches other lessons. Mine did. Morgan and Jordan. My parents kept life polished like the ballroom floor. Avery, my sibling, learned to glide across it without scuffing. Casey, the youngest, never quite learned to glide, thank goodness. If you are imagining antique silver and summer whites, imagine also the hairline crack in a teacup no one mentions. That is where truth leaks out. To understand the gala, go back several weeks to a conference room that pretended to be important because it had a long table and a compliant carpet. The attorney cleared a careful throat and read my grandparents' will. No one expected more than keepsakes. My grandparent wore thrift store cardigans and carried a canvas tote with a pen that always leaked. Avery leaned back and whispered to Morgan. Do we get the chipped plates? Jordan smiled without showing teeth. The attorney said my name. The estate came to me. It included a living trust, a ladder of municipal bonds, a small but steady royalty from an old regional jingle, quiet shares in a logistics startup few at that table had heard of, and the controlling interest in a modest riverfront cooperative. The carpet seemed to shift under the chair legs. Avery gave one bright bark of laughter. To Rowan. For what reason besides sentimentality? The attorney read the letter of wishes, steadiness. Records kept. Not mistaking noise for wisdom. Morgan's jaw set. Jordan's cheek twitched. Casey looked at me like someone feeling a weather change and deciding whether to bring a coat. Money does not invent cruelty. It gives it better shoes. Invitations began. Strategy brunches. A family group chat named Riverside Legacy. Avery posted glossy renderings of a future building with our surname huge, and my grandparents' name reduced to a footnote. Between emojis came small messages with sharp edges. Rowan, you have always been generous with time. Not stewardship. Then a voice note after midnight. I was the maintenance person in a museum of better people. I listened twice. Deleted it. Then wished I had not. Words keep their own copies in your head. Let me ask you something. When family says, sign first, discuss later, what do you do? Sign, stall, or refuse? You can say it out loud if you like. You are not the only one asking that in the dark. Quinn entered then. A paralegal with a careful smile and a habit of reading footers. Quinn did not narrate feelings. Documents did the speaking. Notice this, they said. Tapping a line in a proposed amendment, Avery sent to simplify governance. It did not share authority. It removed mine. The title carried my name as if I had agreed. The metadata showed edits long after midnight from a tablet registered to Avery. The pressure pattern on my signature block looked copied from an old apartment application I had once faxed to Morgan. Quinn did not tell me what to feel. They pointed. They let the quiet say the rest. Sage came next. My anchor. We served together on the library board, where the biggest fights are about moving the reference desk. Sage leaves me calm voice notes at late hours. You do not have to prove you are reasonable to unreasonable people. They said, bring your records. Bring air and light. Around us. The town did what towns do. We live by a river that does not rush. It moves like someone walking home from church. There are festivals with polka bands and bratwurst in winter if you know which basement door to knock on. At the country club, the rules are typed in a font that looks like a promise. The donor wall is laminated and smudges when you rub it. The bartender knows how strong to pour for whichever member is not speaking to which cousin that week. Breadcrumbs arrived at a patient pace. A banker called and addressed me as Avery. I corrected them. The apology sounded like a form letter that wanted feelings. A thrift store picture frame at home fell from a nail. Behind the backing sat a sticky note with a safe code in Morgan's careful hand. In the family chat, a calendar invitation appeared for a trust simplification signing scheduled in the gala's green room. The file attached was named Sign, at, Event, Final. I stared at that name the way you stare at a spider to decide whether it is your business. Casey knocked at my door with a paper bag of store sushi and a look I recognized bad news carried carefully. They will corner you at the gala, Casey said. They say it will look generous if you announce a gift on stage. There is more. Avery has been practicing lines. Casey would not sit. The bag sweated on the table. We listened to the quiet together because sometimes that is all there is to do. Here is a truth I learned after 40. You cannot stop people from being who they train themselves to be. You can stop standing where their habits land. So I moved not away from the gala, but towards steadier ground. I met an estate attorney who filed a petition for a trust protector in case of duress. I spoke with venue security in plain language. I did not ask them to take sides. I asked them to follow the rules posted near the coat check. And in my assigned prep space, the green room, the venue approved a small camera aimed at my door and table. It recorded to secure cloud storage with my authorization. It was not a live stream. The only way that image could reach public screens would be if the event tech routed it there. Otherwise, it sat quietly, preserving facts. I also wore a small microphone under my lapel that sent audio to that same account. 2 keys opened it. One was mine. The other went to Quinn. Noah arrived like a friendly gust through a door you thought was latched. New to the job. Calm with cables. Noah walked me through the gala's setup. There would be a donation ticker. Remote donors could chat. The ballroom screen usually played sponsor slides and past event photos. A separate monitor in the green room let performers watch the stage. There is a switch that mirrors any feed to the big screen. Noah said, tapping the panel. We do not touch it for private rooms. I nodded. The difference matters. Recording is not broadcasting. It mattered to my pulse. The night came dressed in borrowed elegance. The quartet tuned in the corner like bees deciding where to land. Volunteers arranged silent auction baskets that would make a grandparent smile. I signed the check-in sheet with the stubby pen that always rolls off the table. People said my name the way people do when they know a story but want confirmation on the ending. I kept my shoulders low and my voice steady. There is an art to being present without being bait. Avery glided through the foyer in a suit that photographs well. Air kisses landed near cheeks without finding eyes. Morgan and Jordan held posture like a shield. The lobby chandelier trembled when doors closed. Wind tells the truth to anything that hangs by a thread. Sage brushed my elbow once. Stand still, they whispered. Let gravity do its old work. I carried coffee to the green room when the schedule said. The door clicked. The cologne arrived a beat ahead of its owner. The metal circle touched my coat. I could not tell you whether it was real or theater. Fear does not need authenticity to do its job. Sign the amendment, Avery said again. Morgan rested a shoulder near the door. Jordan studied the corners as if truth might be hiding in the baseboards. I set the cup down. I breathed the way an old doctor once taught me slow count up. Pause. Longer count down. I kept my face ordinary. I lifted my eyes to the camera in the corner. Its small red light steady. I nodded toward it. Waved to the recording. I said, "This is not private. It is a line that sounds like a joke if you have never been cornered." The room tightened. Then the world outside rushed toward us, the crack of ice in glasses. Steps that meant business. A voice that could have been a prayer or a curse. I did not move. We had reached the place where patience meets proof. Whether that lens captured a weapon or only the words that tried to become one, it would be enough. You do not need an explosion to reveal a fault line. You need a steady light and enough witnesses. If you have ever felt cornered by your own blood, I am sorry. Tell me what you wish you had done when it was your turn in a small room. And if you want to follow this through to the last, stay with me. The reckoning is not loud for long, but it is thorough. The morning after the will reading, Morgan announced a strategy brunch as if the word brunch could tame a storm. We met at their kitchen table, where napkins fold into little sails and there are always 3 jars of mustard even when no one is eating meat. Sun came through the east window and found the scratches on the polished wood. You can dress a table, but light keeps its own counsel. Avery arrived humming. A folio under one arm. A smile that made promises on credit. Casey kept to the edge of a chair like a cat that has learned about rocking chairs the hard way. Rovan, Avery began. The grown-up move is to streamline. The trust needs a face people recognize. I have the network. They slid a packet toward me. The title read Amendment for Efficiency. My name sat there like a stamp on someone else's envelope. We all know you are excellent with clipboards, Avery added. Light and razor thin. Let me carry the weight. The coffee had that faint burned note that takes you back to road trips in a decade you would not revisit. I lifted the first page. The language sounded helpful until the sentence that removed my rights altogether. Quinn would later circle that line in gentle pencil and write the word irrevocable. I set the packet down and asked how everyone's week was going. Jordan's smile showed the kind of patience people save for toddlers. Morgan tapped a sugar spoon against china in a rhythm that always means argument to come. In towns like ours, the river is the metronome. It slows in winter until the geese can think clearly. It gathers speed in spring and carries gossip like driftwood. The week after brunch, people I barely knew offered congratulations and then advice. A neighbor murmured that windfall money makes a person behave like a fool. Another asked if I intended to endow a pickleball pavilion. At the grocery, I passed a rack of discount cards and thought of my grandparent holding one. Each small saving a tiny dignity. The man ahead of me paid an exact change and then said my name. Gentle. As if to remind me I had not changed. I thanked him for that. At home, a calendar invitation from Avery waited in my inbox. Trust simplification signing. Location green room. Riverside Arts Foundation Gala. I had not agreed to anything. The file attached was named Sign, at, Event, Final. The subject line made my throat hot. I forwarded it to Quinn without commentary. Then took a walk. Our town's German roots show in tidy brick. In a street festival where polka never apologizes. In church basements where volunteers serve fish in winter and laughter belongs to people who have known each other through 3 floods. At the riverfront cooperative my grandparent helped steer. Children rode scooters on a path that still smelled faintly of sawdust from spring repairs. An older couple sat with a thermos of something not coffee and offered me a nod that said, "We see you. But we do not need details. Breadcrumbs do not fall for free. You have to watch for them." A banker called and addressed me by Avery's name. I corrected them. There was a pause long enough to map a silence. When I hung up, I opened the family group chat. Riverside Legacy. At the top sat a photo of a club luncheon. All white napkins and vowels stretched by old money. In the thread, Avery had posted a mock-up of a donor wall with our surname tall and my grandparents' name the size of a footnote. Between emojis, a sentence woven. "This is about community leadership. You have never chased that." I typed nothing. Casey sent a single umbrella icon. A sibling joke about storms we both recognized. That night, a voice note pinged from Avery. I played it once, then again. Because disbelief likes company. Rowan has the temperament for volunteer hours, not stewardship. We all know who the adults are. There was a clink as if a glass had been set down with meaning. I saved the file, then felt a guilt I should not have, as if keeping proof were unkind. Mini hook. If you like that term, a picture frame fell. It had hung crooked in my hallway for years. A thrift find with a watercolor that never quite convinced you. The nail gave. The frame hit carpet and coughed loose its cardboard back. Behind it, a small yellow square. Morgan's handwriting. Neat. A code I recognized from the old liquor cabinet when we were young and supposed to think secrets were magic. I stood very still and understood in my bones that some locks are theater. The door is the point. A soft ding brought me back to the screen. A neighborhood forum I read only when insomnia wins had a thread about a certain person with a new inheritance set to mismanage a beloved property. Replies were kind. Then less kind. Then suspicious. I closed the app and told myself not every shadow is a sign. But if you have lived long enough, you know shadows rarely walk alone. Quinn came to my kitchen with a folder, and that calm you only learn by sitting through hearings where everything hangs on a comma. We drank tea. They spread pages. Notice at timestamps. They said. Showing the calendar invites metadata. Edits long after midnight from a tablet registered to Avery. Another page slid forward. Observe the pressure pattern on this old application. The signature block on the proposed amendment tries to match it. It fails. They stop there. We looked at each other as people do when the room realigns, and you find yourself standing in the short part of the circle. I thanked them in a sentence that broke in the middle. Here is your mid-story poll. As promised, when those you love nudge you toward a pen with a smile and a deadline. What is your next move sign to keep peace? Stall and gather proof. Or refuse and let the fallout happen. Put your choice in the comments and tell me whether you would do it again. Sage called as dusk came on and the river turned the color of old pewter. Do not become the show, they said. Bring light. Not volume. I knew what they meant. Avery wanted a stage. They wanted the story of a wayward sibling called to account. Every humiliation line they had practiced would work only if I answered in kind. There is a way to deflate a bully that is not a slap and not a sermon, it is a mirror. Gala rehearsals began. Noah, the junior tech, walked me through the control board. The donation ticker would crawl. Remote donors could chat. The ballroom screen would show sponsor slides and past event photos. A separate monitor in the green room lets performers gauge entrances. By default, it is private. Not part of any broadcast. Noah tapped 2 caps on the panel. Red mirrors a feed to the ballroom screen. They said, "Blue keeps a view local. We leave private rooms on blue." Their hands did not shake. Mine did. A little. I asked whether my green room audio could also route to secure storage. Noah nodded. Simple enough. Avery's public face grew busier as the date neared. Posts about stewardship and generosity. A short video filmed on the club patio with the river behind. Their voice warm. Their smile flawless. Morgan and Jordan shared it with captions about legacy. Casey sent me only a picture of the river at low light and wrote, "Stand where the ground does not move." Another breadcrumb, a rehearsal email meant for staff, included an attachment I should not have seen. A speech draft with my name in a paragraph promising an onstage announcement of intention to gift a controlling share for the good of the city. The word intention did a lot of work in that sentence. I read it twice. I forwarded it to Quinn. I took a breath that reached the bottom of my lungs and stayed there. The final brunch before the gala tasted of panic flavored like citrus. Morgan poured juice with brisk gestures. Jordan discussed seating charts as if chairs could decide ethics. Avery dabbed their lips and turned to me with the smile of someone accepting an award. "You will do the right thing," they said softly enough that the sugar bowl could overhear. "Think how many will praise your name." They paused. "You have always wanted to be seen. Here is your chance." Humiliations are efficient when they sound like compliments. I set my napkin down and told them I had already been seen by the person who mattered. It was true. My grandparents' letter of wishes called me steady. There are titles no stage can top. On the drive home, the radio caught an old jingle, the one my grandparent wrote decades ago. The royalty that still found its way into the world with modest checks and honest help. I pulled over and listened to the whole half-minute, smiling without shame. In a life where so much noise is purchase and posture, how clean to hear a simple tune do its work without needing an audience. That evening, I walked the river path and watched a barge slide south. Patient as an old horse, the sky took its time becoming dark. I thought about the words we let define us, and the signatures we give away because someone asks with confidence. I put my phone on airplane mode and ate a sandwich I made badly. When I came home, I hung the frame a little straighter than before. Tomorrow would want its drama, let it. I would bring light and a mirror, nothing else. The day of the gala stepped onto the calendar like a guest who does not knock. The country club smelled of beeswax and flowers coaxed to bloom early. Volunteers in black moved trays the way river water moves around stones. The quartet tuned until the room settled. I arrived early to watch cables get taped down. I like to see the bones before velvet hides them. The green room waited down a short hall plain table. 2 chairs. A mirror that tells the truth under unkind light. The small ceiling camera glowed a steady red. Its signal went to secure storage, not to any screen. Quinn texted a single line as doors opened. Clause 19 signatures under pressure are void. A second line followed, petition filed. It read like a blessing written without lace. I slid the phone away. I let the night be itself. The lobby filled. Surface talk about lilacs and river height. The quiet business of glances underneath. Morgan and Jordan held posture like a shield. Avery floated. Camera ready. Casey stood near the back with a folded program. Their hands were not steady. Their eyes were. The program began with small triumphs, a mural finished, a music room kept open, a scholarship that had outlived the person it was named for. My grandparent would have liked those parts. Then the foundation director introduced a surprise tribute. The room leaned forward. Avery stepped to the podium. Smile warm enough to loosen wallets. Friends, Avery said. We all know Rowan generous with time. They let that hang. But stewardship is courage. Laughter stirred. No one likes to miss the approved joke. Tonight, we invite Rowan to do something brave for the city we love. A hand swept toward the wings. The spotlight found the edge of the stage. I walked out. Running never looks good under a chandelier. Avery's fingers met me elbow. Soft and proprietary. Say yes, they murmured. Announce the gift. Papers after. The microphone waited like it always does. I kept my voice for them first. I do not make legal decisions on a stage, I said. Then I lifted my head to let the room hear the end of that sentence. Not tonight, not ever. A hush moved as chairs adjusted and a fork met a plate. Avery's smile did not move. Rowan is thoughtful, they told the crowd, chuckling for approval. Sometimes a little too thoughtful. Let us help them be brave. It performed as a joke. It worked as a nudge. Stop hoarding and start helping. Heads turned toward me as if to confirm whether I deserved the scolding. Here is your mid-story question when someone dresses pressure as generosity. Do you interrupt? Walk off? Or stand still and let their words show themselves? Put your answer in the comments. What you say there helps more people than you think. Behind us. The LED wall flickered for a heartbeat. Not the green room image. That feed is private unless a switch is thrown. What flashed was a rehearsal folder name. A quick whisper of file titles before the screen returned to sponsor slides. The string players paused mid-phrase. It takes a lot to stall trained hands. Noah, at the control station, looked toward me, apology and promise in the same glance. The room chose to laugh. Then it chose to pretend it meant to laugh. Avery recovered smoothly. Technology, they said. And the tables cheered as if a cat had been rescued. Then, lower. For me alone, but carried by every microphone. Sign after this so we keep momentum. The plan had always been to label refusal as stinginess. A person can drown in a teacup if the room agrees the cup is an ocean. I spoke into the mic. Even and brief. I will not be making announcements or signatures this evening. A second line. Because clarity respects hosts. I value this foundation too much to move business out of its proper place. The director wore gratitude and disappointment at once. Then turned both into applause. Some clapped because they understood, some because cue lights are persuasive. The live stream chat, which I did not see then, did not enjoy the cornering. Moderators kept up. Then did not. Sponsors texted the control desk about tone. None of that touched the faces at tables. People still prefer pretending while they are watched. Off stage. In the brief shadow where curtains rest, Avery leaned close, smiling for the hallway walls. We tried the gentle road, they said. You push us to the efficient one. The words were nothing on paper. In the mouth that spoke them, they carried an old edge. You were always the volunteer. Let adults handle real value. Cruelty is most efficient when it sounds reasonable. I did not answer in kind. The river is steady tonight, I said. Everything else can be, too. Contempt does not always understand calm. The tilt of their head said so. In the corridor, Noah stopped me with hands hovering over cables like reins. I am sorry about the flicker, they whispered. A rehearsal folder flashed when I brushed the wrong cap. The green room monitor is still local blue, not red. I told them not to be sorry. Many good things begin with the wrong switch. Back in the green room, Bach found his place again, 2 walls away. I set my coffee down. The camera's tiny red light held steady. It was recording to cloud. Same as before. The door latched. Familiar cologne arrived half a second before its owner. Avery stepped in with a folio and a practiced smile. Morgan came to rest near the handle. Jordan studied the corners like someone counting exits. Sign, Avery said, placing papers on the table as if delivering room service. We are done performing. I looked at the lens. I let the silence do its old work. "This room is on the record?" I said. "It is not private." The reply came, sweet as a blade. "Do not be dramatic. You were always the helper, never the steward." The mirror in the corner did not flinch. Neither did I. What happened next belongs to the small space where patience meets proof. You do not need volume for that. You need light and witnesses, even if the only witness is a camera that keeps its promises. The hallway carried the soft sound of feet that knew where they were going. I did not move. The night had finally reached the page it had been writing toward. I set the cup down. The room held its breath. Avery closed the door with a stage smile and slid papers across the table. Morgan shifted near the handle. Jordan scanned corners like someone counting exits. "Sign, we are done performing." I looked to the ceiling camera, steady red. "Recording to cloud. This room is on the record." I said. 2 soft knocks. Morgan stepped back. The door opened. The protective detail entered, calm as ushers. "Ans visible." One said. Avery lifted a handgun. It coughed. Then died, no flash. Only acrid smoke. During the pre-event sweep, the team had already neutralized it by replacing the magazine with blanks and logging the change with venue security. Avery tried sugar over steel. Sign. "Little helper. Let adults handle value." I did not rise. No signatures in corners. I said, "Only in daylight." The team secured the weapon and set it aside. Radio's quiet. I gathered the papers without touching a pen. Beyond the wall, Bach kept time. The camera kept its promise. The ballroom screen flickered. Noah's finger had pressed the red cap. The private feed mirrored by mistake. Faces turned. The room watched itself, the folio. The failed weapon. The lines meant to bruise. Audio routed, next clean. Even. The foundation directors stepped to a mic with counsel at their side. A brief clarification for donors. They said recommended by legal to protect trust and keep the program honest. Quinn advanced slides that needed no adjectives. Document metadata with midnight edits from Avery's tablet. A signature pressure overlay mismatched to my old rental form. The cooperative's keycard alerts after hours access attempts tied to Morgan. Forwarded to me as trustee. Then Avery's voice note played. "Rowan is for volunteer hours. Let adults handle real value." The room did not murmur. It measured itself. Sponsor logos faded from the overlay. One by one. A final video, my grandparent in a plain sweater. Purpose. Not polish. The clause was simple: any heir who attempts coercion forfeits standing forever. The word forever did its old. Quiet work. Avery reached for charm. Friends. A misunderstanding. I kept my voice low. There are only clocks and names. Security escorted Avery out without spectacle. The director called a short intermission to refocus on students and instruments. The live stream chat exhaled. By morning, the court accepted our trust protector petition and issued an injunction against interference. A brand partner paused Avery's public work. Others followed. The club opened a conduct review. Doors did not slam, they simply stayed shut. Mid-story poll with evidence this clear. Would you press charges? Settle civilly. Or set firm distance and move on. Your counsel helps someone reading quietly tonight. I walked outside. The sky was still blue. Ordinary wind finished what spectacle started. Months moved the way courts move. Avery accepted responsibility for menacing and attempted coercion probation. Community service. Counseling. Morgan and Jordan signed consent orders to stop meddling. A formal apology sits in the probate file like a small stone. The trust stayed whole. The cooperative added affordable leases and mended its stairs. The old jingles royalty paid for lessons, no portraits. just instruments in small hands. Startup dividends followed the charter into a community fund. Quinn kept the folders clean. Sage kept my pulse even when strangers tried to edit the story. Noah now labels every cable twice. Casey joined me on the scholarship committee and still texts the river when it turns pewter. Family contact narrowed to what is safe. Boundaries are not cages, they are garden fences, so something good can grow. I kept simple routines, dawn walks. Board packets with a pen. Dinners where napkins are paper and laughter is real. The fallen frame hangs straight, its back is empty. I like it that way. If there is a lesson, it is this: peace is maintenance. You water it. You weed it. And you do not plant the same trouble twice. Forgiveness, for me, is no longer rehearsing the worst lines. It is not handing anyone a pen. Closing question: would you forgive here? Or let distance do the work? Tell me in the comments. And if you want more true family reckonings or wish to send me yours, subscribe now so you do not miss the next quiet victory. Story 2. It was a Tuesday when my phone buzzed with a message, just 3 words. We all agreed. At first, I stared at the screen. Unsure what it meant yet, my gut sank before my mind could catch up. A minute later, another text arrived from Mom. You're not welcome at the wedding. No punctuation. Just that smug little dash she always used when she wanted to sound formal, a smirk in text form. I reread those words, as though blinking harder might erase them. But they didn't change. This was Sarah's wedding, the very one I'd helped plan and paid for. I'd spent months dousing emotional flare-ups, consoling her breakdowns, booking every vendor she was too frazzled to manage. The same sister who, just 2 weeks ago, had called me her emotional rock as I wired another $1. $500 for centerpieces that looked like Pinterest threw up on a florist. My name is Kyle. I'm 31. And until that fateful text, I thought I was doing something good holding this family together when it always teetered on the brink of falling apart. I'm no millionaire. Far from it. But I've scrimped and saved. Lived modestly. Stayed single. Socked money away while everyone else splurged and borrowed. For years I believed that made me blessed and them unlucky. Turns out, being the responsible one just makes you the family ATM with no overdraft protection. The wedding was supposed to be next Saturday. A beachside venue on the coast with a ridiculous ivory and gold theme my sister insisted was classy but looked more like a royal baby shower. I paid for half the venue deposit. Booked the flights? Even reserved the honeymoon suite in Cabo under my name, because my mom's credit wasn't good enough to secure the reservation and now I wasn't welcome. I didn't respond to the message. I didn't need to. Instead, I opened my laptop and quietly logged into the travel portal I'd used for the honeymoon flights. 2 round-trip tickets. Business class. Under my email. I clicked cancel and watched the screen blink for a second before the $3.800 refund notification popped up. Then I went into my savings account and initiated a transfer $6,500 from Senate. The exact amount I had wired to my mom last month for what she claimed was wedding overflow costs. I didn't say a word to anyone. Just watched the numbers move. I felt nothing. Not anger. Not even sadness. Just a strange sort of calm. Like I'd been holding my breath for years and finally exhaled. The first call came at 8:17 p.m. It was my sister. I let it ring. Then came my cousin. Then my uncle. Then Mom. I turned off notifications and went about my night. Reheating leftovers and watching a documentary. I didn't absorb a second of my morning. There were 23 missed calls for voicemails, and a single message that made my hand go cold. Please call me. It's that stopped me. My dad usually stays out of the chaos. He's a quiet man. The kind who'd rather tinker with a busted coffee maker than get involved in family drama. When I was a kid, I used to think he didn't care. As I got older, I realized it wasn't that he just picked his battles carefully. And for him to step into this one, something was off. But before I could process it, the voicemail started playing in my head. Echoing, even though I hadn't hit play, I imagined Sarah's whiny tone. Mom's theatrical sobbing. Maybe a guilt-laced message from an aunt who hadn't texted me in 2 years. I wanted to delete them all. I really did. But that one message from Dad lingered. This didn't come out of nowhere. It started small. A sideways comment here. A joke there. Last Christmas, Mom said, "Well, at least Sarah will give us grandkids." Not everyone can say that at the time. I laughed it off. I've never wanted kids, and I'm okay with that. But it stung in a way I didn't admit. Then, during Sarah's engagement dinner, I noticed I wasn't seated at the main table just to keep things even, Mom had said. But my younger cousin's boyfriend, who had only been around for 3 months, was seated next to the groom. I swallowed that one too. Like always, they were always little paper cuts. Never big enough to justify a confrontation until suddenly they were. After Sarah got engaged, everything became an emergency. Mom called me in a panic over cake samples. Sarah had meltdowns about bridesmaid dresses. I was expected to cover whatever the groom's family didn't, and I did because I thought helping meant belonging. I thought showing up with my wallet was how I proved I mattered. But it never bought me a seat. It just made me the unpaid intern of their fantasy wedding, and now I wasn't even invited. I sat on the edge of my bed that morning, my laptop still open, the email confirmation of the canceled flights glowing like a quiet middle finger. I scrolled through the missed calls, each name a little louder than the last. Then I got to the message from Dad. Just 6 words. "You need to see this now." That's when my stomach dropped. I stared at the message from Dad, my thumb hovering over the screen. "You need to see this now." 6 words. But they carried the weight of something heavier than guilt. My father has always been a man of few words, but every one of them is measured. He's not dramatic like Mom, not manipulative like Sarah, and definitely not the type to panic. So if you said I needed to see something, it wasn't going to be another teary voicemail or passive-aggressive family group chat post. I called him. He picked up before the second ring. "Kyle," he said, voice low. "You got a minute, yeah?" I said, and suddenly my mouth was dry. "What's going on?" There was a pause. I could hear the muffled thrum of a television in the background. Then the volume clicked off. "I didn't know they were going to do that." "Your mom and your sister. I just found out this morning, after they locked down the seating chart and made the announcement in the family group chat." "I'm not even in the group chat." I muttered more to myself than him. "I know," he replied quietly. "That's part of it." Another pause. Then he said, "Kyle, they told everyone you chose not to come." That hit me harder than I expected. He blinked, trying to make sense of it. "What they said, you were pulling one of your loner stunts? That you got upset over something minor and backed out? Sarah told the family you were always a bit dramatic, and this time you went too far, that you didn't want to be there." I laughed. Sharp. Bitter. Humorless. "So they kicked me out and made it my decision." "Worse," he said. "Your mom said you threatened to ruin the wedding if you came." That knocked the breath out of me. What Dad sighed. "Like you didn't want to be the one saying this." "She told Sarah's in-laws you were emotionally unstable, still bitter about being single, and that you were jealous of your sister's happy ending. Said you were making everything about you." Like usual. Like usual. My voice cracked. I had to stand up. My apartment suddenly felt like it was shrinking. I know. Son. Dad said quickly. I know that's not who you are. I've watched you pick up every piece they dropped. You handled that entire engagement party and no one thanked you. You paid off Mom's second credit card last summer without saying a word. You showed up every time. They didn't. But they don't see that. Or maybe they do. And it threatens them. I leaned against the kitchen counter, my hands shaking. So this whole thing, this exile, was a setup to make me the bad guy. Dad hesitated. Then with an exhale, said, It's worse than that. They already started telling people you refused to fund the honeymoon out of spite. That's when I knew something had changed in me. Something broke. But not in the way I thought it would. I wasn't hurt anymore. I wasn't even angry. I felt detached, cold, like I was watching a rerun of a show I used to care about, but now knew all the plot twist. 2. They took the money. Dad, I said flatly. $6. Wubei. Wired to Mom's account for the honeymoon. I canceled the flights last night. The refund's already back in my account. He was silent for a moment. Then softly. Good. It was the first time in years my father had supported one of my decisions that openly. He wasn't a man of grand gestures. But that one word meant everything. Then he added, There's something else I wasn't going to tell you. But I think you need to see it. I heard rustling on the other end. Then the ping of a message coming through. I opened my phone. It was a screenshot. A group chat. Mom. Sarah and a few of the aunts. My name was mentioned in the thread. Mom texted. Don't worry about Kyle. He's just sensitive because no one's ever loved him enough to marry him. I'll talk to him after the wedding. Once he realizes how childish he's being. Sarah texted. He's a ghost. Let him fade. Just need to make sure he doesn't embarrass us. And Cheryl texted. So we're agreed. No +1 for him. Even if he begs. Mom texted. Exactly. No seat. No speech. No drama. He'll get over it. He always does. I read the messages twice. Then a third time. And then I deleted them. Not out of denial. But because I didn't need to see them again to know the truth. I'd always been an outsider in my own family. The helper. The fixer. The invisible glue. The glue doesn't get a seat at the table. It just holds everything else together while it cracks. And they were right about one thing. I wasn't going to beg that evening. I sat down and began making a list. Not of people to confront, but of systems to dismantle. They wanted me to fade quietly. But they'd forgotten something. I was the one holding the strings. The joint Costco membership with Mom canceled. The Hulu Netflix. Disney Plus family plans. Removed their profiles. The auto payments I'd been quietly making on Sarah. Student loan disabled. And the best part, the vineyard deposit for the wedding, still under my name. Technically, I was the primary contract holder. They never paid me back for that check. I wrote to lock in the date. I've been meaning to deal with that paperwork later. Now, it was at the top of my list as I stared at the contract hovering over the cancel reservation option. I smiled for the first time that day because if they thought I was dramatic before, they hadn't seen anything yet. By Wednesday morning, the silence from my end had them spiraling. The voicemails went from passive-aggressive to desperate. Sarah's tone morphed with every message. First annoyed. Then pleading. Kyle, can we talk? I think there's been a huge misunderstanding. Mom didn't mean it that way. I didn't respond. I listened with my arms crossed, each new message only confirming what I already knew. They were trying to put the toothpaste back in the tube, and it was far too late for that. But I wasn't interested in revenge for the sake of ego. This wasn't about lashing out. This was about letting go and making sure they felt it. That afternoon, I sat down with a black notebook and started writing out every account, every auto payment, every password-protected bill I had my name attached to. I wasn't dramatic. I was thorough. The irony. They called me the cold one. The robot. The one who didn't feel things like the rest of us. They were right in a way. I didn't blow up. I didn't scream. I calculated. I logged in Mom's phone plan, which I've been paying for since 2019, when she got laid off. Suspended. She wouldn't even notice until she tried to make a call during her hair trial on Friday. Sarah's Venmo, which was connected to my bank as a backup card from when she overdrafted 3 times during college and never figured out how to remove it. Unlinked. And then I reported the suspicious charges on my account just for fun. Fraud protection is a beautiful thing. By Thursday morning, I had an email from the wedding venue, a polite but firm confirmation. Your cancellation request has been received per the contract. Your deposit will be forfeited unless a replacement booking is secured. I smiled. Let them explain that to the 118 guests flying in for a Saturday ceremony that suddenly didn't have a legal reservation. Around noon, my cousin Mark called. He's the only one who ever treated me like a person, not a tool. His voice was tired. Kyle, what's happening? I didn't lie. I'm done funding a family that sees me as a wallet with legs. He sighed. They're freaking out. Good? Sarah's having a meltdown. She's saying you're ruining her marriage. I gave a dry laugh. If a canceled flight and a frozen honeymoon fund ruins a marriage, maybe it wasn't built to last. You didn't argue. You just said, I wish you'd told me sooner. I always knew they leaned on you too much. That night, I opened my laptop again and logged into my dad's old Dropbox account, the one we used when I helped him digitize all the family records a few years back. Inside was a goldmine of scanned receipts, emails, even the original invoice from the engagement party that I paid for. But Mom conveniently forgot I covered. I created a new Google Drive folder, uploaded everything and titled it Contributions from Kyle Nobody Wanted. Then I copied the link and sent it to every family member on the group thread. I didn't write a caption. I didn't need one. Less than 5 minutes later, I was kicked out of the family chat. Perfect. But the real turn came Friday morning. The day before the wedding, I was sipping coffee and enjoying the quiet when I got an email from the groom's mother. Linda. We'd met once. She was kind, poised, and very by the book. The kind of woman who kept her silverware aligned and said, darling instead of sweetie. Her message was short, but it rattled me more than any voicemail subject. Concern about the wedding. Kyle, I wanted to reach out directly. I've heard bits and pieces about what's going on. And quite frankly, I'm alarmed. If you have a moment, could we speak? I feel like I'm missing some very important information. Best. Linda. That was the moment I realized this wasn't just family gossip anymore. This was a thread unraveling from both ends. I called her. She answered immediately. Thank you for calling, she said. Formal, but with an edge of concern. I don't mean to overstep, but my son just informed me that the venue may have been canceled. It was, I said plainly. I paid the deposit. It was under my name. She was quiet for a second. That's not what we were told. I'm sure. Another pause. She cleared her throat. Kyle, I don't know what's been said, but I was told you declined to come, that you'd backed out because you were bitter. I let the silence hang, then asked, do bitter people usually pay for floral arrangements, the wedding cake, the DJ, and half the venue? Linda inhaled sharply. I was unaware of any of that. Of course you were. They needed someone to blame when I pulled out and when I stopped funding it. They made sure to do what they always do. Point the finger at me. Her voice lowered. I understand now why you've distanced yourself. I would have to. But, Kyle, there's something you should know. Sarah. She opened a joint credit card with your mom last week. And she used your name on the application. I froze what they claimed you co-signed. My husband caught it when we reviewed the final expenses. He recognized your name on the paperwork. That was it. That was the part that changed everything. I wasn't just the family ATM anymore. I was a target. I sat there, my coffee suddenly cold in my hand, the room closing in around me as Linda's words echoed in my ear. They claimed you co-signed. I hadn't. Not even close. I've always been careful about credit. Guarded. Even after watching Mom default on a car loan in my early 22nd and drag her credit into the basement with mine tethered behind it. Because? Yes. She had convinced me to co-sign that I'd spent the better part of a decade fixing my financial reputation. I knew better. I hadn't signed anything for this wedding outside of what I paid for directly. Do you have a copy of the application? I asked Linda. My voice calm but clipped. I do, she said. Would you like me to send it to you immediately? Please. A few minutes later, it landed in my inbox. There it was, staring back at me. An application for a high-limit wedding credit card with a forged digital signature. My name, address, social security number. Even my old work email probably lifted from tax forms or bank records they still had lying around. I didn't feel rage. I didn't feel sad. I felt clear. All these years, I'd been the fallback plan, the fixer, the silent financier, but forging my name. That wasn't desperation. That was entitlement soaked in fraud. That was theft. And it was the final straw. I filed a fraud report with the credit card company. Took screenshots of every detail. Then I filed a police report. I attached the documentation, the forged application, and a notarized statement of non-consent. Then I picked up my phone, and for the first time since Mom's smug message that started all this, I called her. She answered on the second ring like she'd been waiting. Kyle, she said, her voice overly cheerful. I was just about to call you. Stop, I said flat. I just want to hear it from you. Did you sign my name on a credit card application? Silence. Kyle. You're being ridiculous. That was just a backup. In case the honeymoon ran over. You know how these things go. Did you sign my name? A long pause. Then Sarah said you would have done it if you knew it was important. I let that hang there like a guillotine. That's not an answer, I said, my voice cold. But it's fine. You can explain it to the investigator when they call that cracked her mask. What, are you serious? Kyle, we're family. You're really going to make this ugly over a little misunderstanding? Mom, I said, cutting her off. You kicked me out of a wedding I paid for, lied to everyone about it, and committed fraud in my name. I didn't make this ugly. You did. I'm just putting it in the light where it belongs. Kyle, honey, please. We can fix this. I hung up. That evening, I drove to my dad's place. He was waiting for me on the porch with 2 beers, and that silent weather look he always wore when things got heavy. You okay? He asked as I sat beside him. I nodded slowly. Getting there. We didn't talk much. We didn't need to. You just handed me the beer and we watched the sun dip below the trees. Eventually, he said, You did the right thing. And somehow that meant more than anything. The fallout came fast. First came the phone calls from family. My aunts. My cousins. Even Uncle Greg, who hadn't spoken to me since 2016. They all wanted to know what was really going on. Why the wedding was off. Why Sarah had posted a cryptic Instagram story about being betrayed by blood. I didn't respond. Then came the texts. The apologies. The guilt trips. Kyle. I had no idea. We should have stood up for you. Can we please talk? But I was done being there. Emotional janitor. I let the calls go to voicemail. But the texts sit unread. As for the wedding, it never happened. With the venue canceled and no backup secured, they tried to pivot to a backyard ceremony. But the guests were confused. Some turned around mid-flight. And the groom's family, having learned about the forged credit card, called the whole thing off. Apparently, financial fraud before the vows isn't a great look. Sarah went on a posting spree. Cryptic stories. Bible verses. Passive-aggressive quotes about snakes in the grass and family who turns their back on you. I didn't flinch. Because here's the thing. Sometimes the best revenge isn't a dramatic confrontation. It's not yelling or exposing someone in front of a crowd. Sometimes it's just clarity. Quietly dismantling the system that took you for granted. Walking away while the whole rotten house collapses behind you. About a week later, I got a final message from Mom. You've made your point. We're all hurting. You didn't have to go this far. I didn't reply. Instead, I changed my number. I took a few days off work and booked a trip solo. Just me and my laptop on the same resort Sarah was supposed to honeymoon at. Funny thing about being the one who booked everything under your name. You know the cancellation policies? I changed the dates. Upgraded the suite. Took her champagne package and added it to my reservation. And I sat on that balcony. Drink in hand. Waves rolling beneath me. Thinking about how long I'd waited for someone to see me. But I finally saw myself. Not the version they needed me to be. Not the fixer. Not the bank account. Just Kyle. Century E. Free. And finally done trying to earn love. I never owed them in the first place. I don't know if they'll ever really understand what they lost. But I do. And I'm not giving it back. Story 3. I press my thumb into Nana Edie's crocheted scarf. The soft loops catching like they want to anchor me to the pew. The chapel smells of eucalyptus spray and lemon polish. On the pedestal sits a single brushed steel urn Nana's. Pop Bernard's service was 3 months ago. Quiet at the harbor with the drivers. Today is Nana's turn. And because she was the survivor on paper, our attorney will close out both estates this afternoon. 1 ceremony, 2 farewells, and the final reading for everything they built. Mom Celeste. 54 leans toward the urn and whispers to a photographer. Get my left side. Dad Victor. 58 argues with the funeral director about market volatility fees. My younger brother, Dylan. 27. Scrolls his phone like it's an oxygen tank. I tap my own screen and start a discreet audio recording. Not for drama, for memory. I'm Mara Quinn. 31. A school counselor, the steady one. My grandparents raised something steady in me too. Weekends at their Monterey bungalow smelled like bread and salt. Pop ran Rage's harbor logistics reefers. Dock routes. Winter runs no one else wanted. Fix things first, he'd say. passing me a wrench. Buy new only when something's truly broken. Nana planted rosemary in coffee tins and believed the truth grows better in daylight. After the service, we crossed to Attorney Nora Patel's office facing Cannery Row. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Casebooks in careful rows. A bowl of peppermints no one touches. Mom claims the center chair like a talk show guest. Dad stands behind her. Palms on the backrest. Dylan hovers near the door. Ready to bolt or bask. Nora clears her throat. As executor of the estates of Edith and Bernard Reyes, I'll read their final directives exactly as written. Paper rustles. The language flows. Formal and exact. Until she reaches the line that changes air pressure. Their entire estate, preliminarily valued at $29.8 million, transfers to their granddaughter, Mara Quinn. Silence. Then Dad repeat that. Mom's grief face blinks off. There must be a mistake. Dylan's chair scrapes. You always wanted this. Admit it. I didn't know. I manage. Nora lifts a hand. They anticipated disagreement. She turns her laptop. A video fills the screen, the greenhouse behind the bungalow. Rain pebbling the glass. Pop in a flannel. Nana in his denim shirt. Both tired and decided. If you're watching this, Pop says. Voice even. We did not change our minds. Nana looks into the lens. Victor. Celeste. Dylan. We love you. We cannot fund cruelty. Mara showed up when there was nothing to gain. She is our choice because she is our truth. The screen goes black. The foghorn outside the window does the rest of the talking. In the parking garage, Dad blocks my path. Voice soft as rope. Transfer managerial control to me tomorrow. Keep den Bersent. I'll take the weight. Victor. Moncos. As if to soften the bite. This is complicated money. We'll shepherd it. You keep doing your school thing. Dylan steps close enough for me to smell mint gum. Remember who held your rent. Mara. Loyalty. I grip my keys until the metal bites. I need time. Dad leans in. I hold the note on your building. One call. And time ends on the sidewalk. They walk away confident enough to cast reflections that look almost like love from 20 feet back. My studio is 800 square feet of thrift store calm. A ficus leans toward the one good window. The kettle shrieks louder than it boils. I've just started a go bag when a heavy knock rattles the door. Management inspection. Amen calls. My phone vibrates. Nora. Don't open, she says. I filed emergency protections. But they may try to lock you out. Go now. I'll meet you at the Reyes house. Fog ropes the highway as I drive Ocean View. The bungalow sits behind cypress. Shingles dark with mist. The gate creaks in Tomas Rivera. Cap low. Straight-backed. Steps onto the porch. Miss Quinn, I'm Tomas. 14 years on the house and grounds. His voice warms. Welcome home. Inside smells like lemon oil and cinnamon. Nana's default weather. The kitchen table is nicked in a constellation Pop used to trace Dax Amenius. Nothing here performs. Everything functions. Tomas presses a small brass key into my palm. She asked me to give you this if things went like this. He leads me to Pop's paneled office route maps pinned above the desk. A window over rosemary and coffee tins. Bottom left, he says. The key turns. A hidden drawer slides open, a leather journal in Nana's hand and a slim USB labeled in green tape greenhouse. Footsteps. Ruth Kim's salt and pepper hair. Steady Eyes appears with a tray. I kept the house 20 years, she says, setting tea and a plate of lemon loaf. Friend. When they let me be. I lay the journal on the desk. The first page I turn to holds Nana's neat script. Victor came for coffee. Left with a check. Bernard says to keep peace. I say peace without boundaries is just silence. Nora's knock is quick and sure. Locks rechecked. She surveys the journal. The drive. The tea. Good. She says. We start here. Tonight they'll push. Tomorrow they'll escalate. But you are not alone. I untie the ribbon. The pages are a map of small dots, precise truths. The drive on the desk is a fuse we haven't lit. Pop taught me to fix what can be fixed and name what can't. I close my hand around the scarf once, then let it rest on the chair. When I finally click greenhouse, whatever is planted there will either take root or burn the weeds clean. Either way, daylight's coming. Nora plugs the USB into Pop's desktop. The first clip opens on a rainy afternoon 6 weeks before Nana died. Water stars the panes. Tomato vines climb twine. Celesta steps in first cream coat. No hood. Victor follows. Folder under arm. Shoes too dry for the weather. Dulan lax. Hoodie up. Shoulders hunched. Audio is crisp. Tell the doctor you're worried about her memory. Mom coaches Dylan. Aligning a spray bottle so it faces the lens. Family observations matter. Victor taps the folder. She signs the durable power. We move the accounts. Simple. Dylan bites his lip. What if she says no? She won't understand. Dad replies. Be gentle. Keep talking. The door opens again. Nana wipes her hands on a towel. You three look like the forecast. She says storm. Fog. And a little hail. She kisses Dylan's cheek. What do you need? Mom offers papers. Doctor's recommendation. Mama. Just formalities. Nana reads the first page. Faison changed. This gives Victor control of our accounts. Temporarily. Dad says. Until you're stronger. Nana folds the page twice and slides it into her pocket. I'm Eddie Clear. She says. Come again with this and I'll bring company. She sees Mom's confusion. An attorney. She squeezes Dylan's sleeve. Don't learn the wrong lesson from this. The clip ends. We sit with the echo of Edie Clear. Nordak Salas slow. This establishes capacity and intent. It also documents interference. She opens Greenhouse 2-4. In one, Dad tours the living room with a stranger while Pop is in hospice. Naming prices. In another, Mom pockets spoons for inspiration photos. The pantry clip catches Dylan counting wine into his notes. The last shows Nana watering basil. Narrating a shopping list in detail. Clear voice. Clear mind. Anger spreads in me like steady heat, no flare. Just a setting concrete. Ruth sets my tea down. Steady hands. Now you see why she labeled it greenhouse. She says. Truth needs warmth and glass. Nora flips to a legal template. Immediate tasks, emergency injunctions. Account freezes where needed. Lock changes. And a communication wall. Every contact from your family goes through me. Also, the board at Reyes Harbor Logistics hereafter. RHL needs notice before Victor tries anything. Board, I ask. Tomasz nods. Bernard added 3 outside directors last year when he took sick. He asked my opinion on 2. He looks almost shy. He trusted people who did the work. Nora dials and puts Camila CORHL's CFO on speaker. Camila's voice is clipped. Awake. I've been expecting this, she says. 2 clients forwarded emails from a Victor Reyes asking to move their contracts. We did not reply. Come by. Nora says. 20 minutes. Camila answers. Ruth, listening, says. Come hungry. Because she is Ruth. While we wait, I open Nana's leather journal to an entry addressed to me, Mara. If you're reading, it means we chose a hard kindness. Protect the drivers. Protect the house. Tell the truth without theater. When you can, rest. The bell rings light. Not a pound. Tomas checks cameras and admits a lanky teen with a bike helmet. I'm Eli Navarro, he says when he sees me. I mowed for Edie. My aunt found this under the hydrangeas. He hands me Mom's mother of pearl brooch. Pin bent. Dirt clinging in the clasp. Also, the night after the service, I saw lights. Your mom and Dylan at the back. They carried a box. Nora thanks him. Notes the time. Photographs the brooch. And logs his statement without making him feel like an exhibit. Ruth wraps lemon loaf in foil for the witness. And Eli leaves a little taller. Camila arrives with a calm that steadies the table. Navy sweater. Hair in a blunt bob. No jewelry. She opens a slim laptop and projects a one-pager on the dining room wall. Operations are sound, she says. Modest debt from the cold storage expansion. Winter contracts covered it. Our exposure is reputational. If Victor spooks clients, drivers get nervous. We need a message out this week from you. Me, I ask. You're the legal successor and the moral one. Nora says. Use both. Camila scrolls. Also, I found a wire template created 2 days ago using Dylan's admin credentials. It points to a sham vendor. Harbor Safety LLC. Routing to a Nevada holding company. No money moved. Policy blocked execution. My stomach drops. How did he have admin rights? Camila doesn't flinch. Last year, Dylan interned in dispatch divided by IT for 8 weeks. His elevated access should have been revoked. It wasn't. That's on us. I've corrected it and opened an internal audit. The door swings again. A woman in a yellow raincoat enters, wiping her glasses with her sleeve. Addison Pike. Bluefin seafood, she says. Bernard saved us in the 19 strike. I heard noise. Wanted the source. She unfolds a sheet transfer of authority bearing a shaky cut and paste of Nana's signature dated 3 weeks after she died. Camila enlarges the PDF. Pixel edges break at the S. We didn't bite, Addison says. But others might. Send me a sentence we can post on our doc board. 2. Tops. I say, RHL is operational, contracts honored. Any new management calls are fraudulent. Questions to Camila. She nods. That'll do. A Monterey officer appears. Hat tucked under his arm. Anonymous tip about safety violations. He explains. We'll inspect belts and reefers. Coffee, Camila asks. If it's not from 1992, it deadpans. And the room lightens. Outside. He twists a strap and reveals thin razor scores. Not visible until stressed. He photographs. Bag samples. And takes statements. Tomas pulls cloud video from midnight. A hooded figure moves along the fence with a crooked right foot swing Dylan's old ankle break. The officer doesn't name him. He writes suspect known. Investigation opened, and says a detective will follow up. It shifts from family mess to potential crime with a line of ink. Back inside. We record a 2-minute staff message. I look into the lens. I'm Mara. I ate bread in Edie's kitchen and rode trucks with Bernard when I could be trusted with a seatbelt. The company is steady. The work is the work. Rumors go to Camila. Yard concerns go to Tomas. If you need to talk, come find me. We won't confuse noise with truth. Camila sends it to every inbox and pins it in break rooms. By late afternoon, 3 clients confirm support. 1 requests a site visit. Another admits Victor pitched priority routing. Camila builds a tracker who received calls, who wavered, who needs reassurance. Patterns matter. Ruth texts from the attic, found a box labeled, "In case of Victor." Bring Nora. We gather at the desk. Inside loan notes. Dates. Printed emails with headers circled. A ledger with a red ribbon. Pop's block letters on page 1. Harbor shares distributed via employee trust. Any transfer outside trust void unless signed by Edie and me in blue ink. Witnessed by 2 non-family managers. Recorded within 10 days. Camila Exales. That clause alone sandbags any backroom move. Nora arrives with filings. Reads. And nods. Chain of custody copies made. Court in the morning. If they move. And they will. I add 1 sentence under Nana's last journal line. Choose honesty and build new peace. I'm trying. Outside. Fog beads on glass like punctuation. Inside. The map is clear locks. Filings. Calls. Names. Night will bring shadows to the fence. Morning brings docks. And people who keep this place moving. Tomorrow I go shake hands at Pier 12. I'll bring burritos. I'll bring names. I'll bring the truth we can prove. Sun lifts the fog off Cannery Row like a curtain. I knot Nana's scarf once, not for warmth. For nerve. Samila pulls up, slides me a breakfast burrito, and passes a pen, protein and signatures. She says, drivers respect both. Piat Swerve smells like diesel and brine. Backup beepers chirp. Gulls argue on the roof. Dispatch sits in a low blue building. A whiteboard lists routes in dry erase. I start with names. Morning. Lizette. Mateo. Our man. I hand out foil-wrapped burritos. I'm Mara. Bernard and Edie's granddaughter. I'm here to keep pay on time and trucks on the road. Tension eases by millimeters. Are you driving or bossing? Asks Big Joe, who is ironically small and radiant. Listening first. I say, driving if needed. Camila projects a 1-page plan. Routes unchanged. Pay unchanged. Accounts secured. If you get calls about new management, route them to me. She points at her number. Direct line. Lisa 13 and Victor called last night. Wanted client lists? Anything in writing, Camila asks. Lisette slides over her phone. We capture the log and forward it to Nora with 2 words, pattern documented. Armin leans on a pallet jack. There's a group online, Protect the Reyes Heritage. Looks like Dylan started it. They're posting photos of the house and hinting the company's unstable arcrows. I write the handle down. A silly name in ink, a useful exhibit in court. We move through the yard. I ask what breaks. What works. What never gets fixed. Answers are practical, a liftgate sticks. A coffee pot died. Truck 17's radio hisses and only finds pastor stations. I note everything. Small fixes add up to respect. A white sedan idles near the fence. The driver looks away. Too quickly. Tomas appears at my elbow like he grew from concrete. Same dent as yesterday. He murmurs. I photograph the plate and keep moving. Not every truth needs a scene. Inside. Camila frowns at her screen. Found it, she says, rotating the laptop. A wire template built 2 days ago with Dylan's admin credentials. Destination is a Nevada holding company disguised as a vendor. Policy blocked execution. How did he still have admin, I ask. Heat rising. Because last year he interned in dispatch divided by IT and our offboarding failed. Camila answers. I've revoked access and opened an audit. That's on me. No defensiveness. Just a fix. The bell jangles. Addison Pike steps in. Yellow raincoat dripping. She slides a forged transfer with a pasted Edith signature across the counter. We didn't fall for it, she says. But others might. Give me 2 sentences for our dock board. RHL is fully operational. Contracts honored. Any new management calls are fraudulent. Questions to Camila. She nods. Perfect. A Monterey officer arrives on an anonymous tip. He checks belts and seals. At truck 12. He twists a strap. Razor scores flash. He photographs and bags it. Tomas pulls midnight footage a hooded figure along the fence with a crooked right foot swing Dylan's old ankle. The officer keeps his face neutral. I'm opening a criminal mischief divided by tampering case. He says. A detective will contact you. It stops being just family drama. It becomes a file number. We record a 2-minute video for staff. I look into the lens. I grew up eating bread in Edie's kitchen and riding with Bernard when he trusted me to sit still. RHL is steady. If rumors find you, send them to Camila. If the yard looks wrong, tell Tomas. If you need me, I'm at the docks or the house. We will not confuse noise with truth. Camila pushes it to every inbox and pins it on the break room screen where weather used to hum. By noon, 3 clients double down with us. One asks for a visit. Another confesses Victor promised priority routing. Camila logs calls. Color codes risk. Drafts, reassurance notes. Patterns. Then plans. At 2. Ruth texts. In case of Victor box come now. We lock up and drive back. The fog has burned off. On the porch. Eli waits. Nervous. 2 guys were at the back fence. He says. They ran when I showed up. One dropped this. He hands me a blue nitrile glove. Inside sits a tiny GPS tag. Tomas tweezers it into an evidence bag. We'll scan trucks. He says. See what they tried to follow. In the study, Ruth sets a banker's box on the desk. Nana's handwriting on the lid is precise. In case of Victor, inside loan notes. Dates. Printed emails with headers circled. An inventory of missing items by room, with day and hour noted. And a black ledger with a red ribbon. Pop's first entry. 1,998 Harbor shares distributed via employee trust. Any transfer outside trust is void unless signed by Edie and me in blue ink. Witnessed by 2 non-family managers. Recorded within 10 days. Camila Exales. That clause is a wall. Nora arrives with filings and coffee. She reads the ledger. Bags the GPS tag. Photographs the box's contents. And drafts affidavits. They'll file for a freeze tomorrow. She says. We oppose. We bring the greenhouse and the ledger. We let procedure do its work. My phone buzzes Dylan. I don't pick up. His voicemail trembles. I didn't cut all the way through. Dad said we'd be safe. I'm in over my head. He hangs up without asking for anything. It's almost a confession. Almost an excuse. We end the night with lists. Nora filings. Subpoenas for the template logs. Camila client letters. Internal audit. Revoke stale accounts. Tomasz Restrop. Scan for tags. Pull more clips. Ruth itemize returned silver. Label. Store. Meet drivers. Show up steady. Speak plain. At 3 a.m. The camera pings. Tomas texts first cat. Not crook. With a clip of the neighbor's orange Tom squeezing the gate. I laugh into the pillow. Grateful to laugh at anything. By dawn, I'm in a clean shirt. Ledger in a canvas bag. Scarf knotted once. Friday is coming. The courtroom will be cold. Dad will be warmer than he's ever been. Mom will look breakable. Dylan will study the floor. We have one job show proof. Not performance. Time to do it. The courthouse smells like dust and old toner. Nora stacks our exhibits ledger. Affidavits. Photos in clear sleeves. Camila sits behind us. Hands still. Tomas and Ruth take the second row. Eli perches at the end. Sneakers quiet. I knot Nana's scarf and keep my hands folded. Judge Harlan Chen reviews Victor's emergency petition claims of diminished capacity, undue influence, family destabilization. The words rattle like loose bolts in a hub. Norarizes. We oppose the freeze. The decedent's capacity and intent are documented on video and paper. Attempts at interference are also documented. She clicks the monitor. Greenhouse, one plays. Mom's sweetness curdles under courtroom lights. Dad's smoothness thins. Nana's eddy clear lands clean. Victor watches without blinking. Celeste dabs the same eye. Dylan keeps his hands in his pockets. Nora calls witnesses. Addison identifies the forged transfer and confirms Bluefin refused it. Camila explains the blocked wire template built with Dylan's admin credentials and routes. Then how policy kept funds in place. The Monterey officer describes razor-scored straps and introduces photos. He does not name Dylan. He doesn't need to. The gate is in the evidence. Tomas explains keys. Cameras. And a crooked right step he's seen since Dylan's ankle break at 17. Ruth reads the blue ink clause from the ledger and outlines board protocol requiring non-family witnesses. She studies. Once. And goes on. Fact stack. No heat. Victor's attorney objects often. Judge Chen sustains some. Overrules others. And trims rhetoric. Who? When? Where he asks. Pen rapid. Nora calls me. I swear in. The mic pops. Why oppose a freeze? Miss. Quinn the judge asks. Because freezes punish the wrong people. I say. Drivers. Port workers. A freeze turns rumors into reality. We can protect the estate and keep the company operating. Do you benefit personally from operations? Yes. I answer. So do 112 employees in a coastline that eats in winter. Nora plays our 2-minute staff clip. I look ordinary on courthouse glass. That feels right. Victor's attorney paces. You're a school counselor. What do you know about freight? Routes. Schedules. People. I say. I know a stalling story from a request for help. I know the difference. Did you influence your grandparents? No. I say. The camera doesn't care who I am. Their words match their paperwork. It pivots. Your brother says you're unstable. Then he should be glad I'm surrounded by people who tell me no. I say, nodding to Nora. Camila. Ruth. Tomasz. Good governance is hearing no. Enough. Judge Chen says. Not unkindly. He reads again. Pen tapping. Outside. Fog thins to sun. Petition denied. He rules. Temporary protective orders remain. All family contact goes through council. Any attempt to alter accounts or interfere with operations may result in contempt and immediate remand. A full hearing on capacity and intent is set 30 days from today. Until then, Miss Quinn remains executor and beneficiary per the will. He meets my eyes. Do not mistake this for victory. It is procedure. Do the job. Yes, Your Honor. He turns to Victor. Mr. Reyes. If another forged signature crosses my docket, we will address it as criminal, not civil. Air leaves the room. My legs shake when I sit. Ruth squeezes my shoulder. Camila emails the stamped order to dispatch before we reach the aisle. On the steps, microphones bud like mushrooms. No comment. Nora says for us both. Someone shouts. Mara. Are you tearing your family apart? I keep walking. Proof answers better than sound bites. On the drive home, Dylan's voicemail arrives. I didn't know he'd paste her name. He says, I didn't cut all the way through the straps. He swallows. I'm in over my head. He doesn't ask for anything. He doesn't apologize. At the house, work closes around us. We draft Klein letters. Camila schedules a staff town hall for Monday. Tomas replaces every strap that tested weak and scans trucks for tags. Ruth checks returned items against her inventory sheet, noting serial scratches only she would remember. Nora files formal notices and CCs the order to anyone who needs policy. Not persuasion. At 9, the gate camera pings. A lone figure at the intercom, Dylan. No hoodie. No swagger. A banker's box in his arms. I meet him on the steps. Porch light makes his eyes look younger. I'm not coming in, he says. He sets the box down. Steps back. Inside spoons. 2 framed photos. 3 small things that matter only to us. I didn't tell them I'm here. Okay. I'll sign about the template and the forged transfer, he says. I can't about the straps. I froze. I'm sorry. He stares at the rosemary. He said if I helped, we'd be safe. Safe from what? From being cut off, he says. Turns out the cutting went the other way. Send your statement to Nora tonight. I say, she'll protect you. He nods. You look steady. I'm tired. I say, sometimes that helps. He half smiles. Tell Pop I fixed the oil leak on truck 17, he says, and flinches at his own mistake. I know. He vanishes into dark. Inside, Ruth logs each returned item. Tomas seals the box. Camila thanks Addison by email with a copy of the order. Nora texts Heard about Dylan. Good? Keep records. I sit in the greenhouse with the journal. Glass holds the day's heat. In the reflection, a woman in a scarf looks like she belongs to her choices. Tomorrow we request mediation. Not because I expect repair, because decency belongs in the record before we close the door. I lock up, kill the lights, and hear the house settle like a ship finding harbor. Procedure. Then peace. In that order. The mediator's office sits above a hardware store that still sells screws by the ounce. Retired Monterey Police Chief Ana Morales greets us with a grip like a winter tide. Ground rules, she says. No shouting. No threats. Facts on the table. Choices on paper. Agree today or the court draws your lines. Victor arrives in navy. Celeste wears gray and practiced remorse. Dylan comes alone. Nora starts. Our proposal: return everything taken. Cease contact outside counsel. Accept a modest conditional trust, no board seat. No access to operating accounts. In exchange, we won't pursue criminal charges for theft, attempted fraud, or interference. The separate tampering investigation is the police department's, not ours. Victor scoffs. You'd jail your father. I'd enforce the law. Nora says. Mara will enforce boundaries. Celeste reaches for softness. Sweetheart, this can be graceful. Ruth's inventory sits between us. Each item checked as it returned. Tomas's photos show scored straps. Camila's chart traces the blocked wire. Dylan clears his throat. I'll sign, he says. Voice thin. Return what I took. Make a statement. I don't want the trust. I want out. He doesn't look at Victor. Son Victor begins. No. Dylan says. Not loud. Just final. Anna's gaze moves to Victor. Your move. He leans back. Eyes on the ceiling. You're killing your lineage over a grudge. He tells me. We built that company. Adi and Bernard built it. I say. You borrowed it for parties. Celeste trees a last angle. The community believes me. They watch the greenhouse. Camila says. They believe their eyes. The room quiets like tide pulling out. Anna slides the agreement forward. Victor scans. Pen tapping a dinner table rhythm from my childhood. He signs hard enough to dent the next page. Celeste signs with a flourish like a logo. Dylan signs small. Ana notarizas. You have 72 hours to return remaining items. She says. Breach the order. The offer collapses. Victor stands. The harbor remembers who feeds them. He says. They do. I answer. And that's why we're here. On the sidewalk he lingers. Families that split don't heal. He warns. Almost gentle. Some wounds shouldn't close over lies. I say. They rot. He shakes his head and walks away. Celeste follows without looking back. Dylan stays. I'm going to Aunt May's. He says. Marina work. Night classes. I need to be poor on purpose. When you're ready, email Camila for a junior dispatch slot. I say, not because you're my brother. Because you know the routes. Relief flickers. Okay. He says. Back at the house. We work. Thomas and Ellie sweep the attic. Ruth checks Nana's china against her list. Camila drafts an internal memo what happened. What's protected? What's next? Nora files the signed consent order and Dylan's statement. She forwards the officer's report number so no one forgets. This part has its own track. That night, I walk the yard alone. Metal cools. Harbor air tastes like diesel and salt. At truck 17. A note sits under the wiper pops block letters from years ago, rescued from a drawer and moved by time. Check your straps. I laugh and cry in one breath. Doing it. I tell the dark. 72 hours pass. A plain box arrives with the last missing pieces. No note, which is a note. Aina text consent order entered. I'll testify if they breach. Procedure holds. We still prepare for the 30-day hearing Judge Chen set. Because you don't relax into wet cement. We'll compile clean binders. Label exhibits. Confirm chain of custody. No gloating. Just work. On Sunday, I plant basil seeds in the greenhouse soil and label the row. A simple act that says staying. Monday's town hall fills the freezer warehouse with jacketed bodies and coffee steam. Camila opens with numbers, steady cash flow. Audit complete. Safeguards tightened. I follow with names and plans, profit-sharing expansion. Safety bonuses. The Edie and Bernard Fund for trade scholarships tied to the company's future. Applause rises like tide and then steadies. Big Joe wipes his eyes with the back of his hand. Lisette flashes me a V. Less victory than we see. After. A woman I don't know stops me. I spring cleaned your grandmother's house, she says. She made me mint tea from the garden. She'd like this. I hope so. I say. That afternoon, a glossy firm sends a disinvite to a gala wrapped in courtesy words. I set it in the compost with citrus rinds and coffee grounds. Fertilizer beats pretense. We close the quarter in black ink. Camila brings sparkling cider. Tomas toast with paper cups. Ruth says, eat like a prayer, and presses lemon loaf into our hands. At dusk, Eli asks if he can take shop class and work part-time. School first. I say, we'll make it fit. The rosemary in the yard holds its shape in the wind. Nora texts, you did the job. It lands warm and heavy earned. Lines drawn in wet cement need time. You guard them from scuffs and storms until they cure. Then you stop tiptoeing and walk on what you built. We're almost there. 30 days slip by. Busy and ordinary. The second hearing is quick. Judge Chen reviews clean binders and doctor's letters, stating what the greenhouse videos already showed. Edie and Bernard were lucid and precise when they signed. He affirms the will, enters the consent order, and closes the case. No flourish. Just stamps and dates. Victor doesn't meet my eyes. Celeste dabs the same eye out of habit. Dylan sits beside Aunt May. Shoulders down. On the way out, he lifts 2 fingers. Enough. Life finds a rhythm that isn't old but feels right. Most mornings I'm back in my counseling office by 7:30. The brass plate reads Mara Quinn. Student counselor. It still matters most. Between students, I sign invoices, read dispatch notes, answer 1 or 2 calls only I should take. Camila runs operations. Tomas runs the yard. Ruth runs the house. I run toward quiet where I can. We launched the Edie and Bernard Fund with trades. Pop would have loved CDL training. Marine tech. Refrigeration. Welding. First recipients tour the yard with wide eyes and clipboards. We plant a small cedar for each scholarship along the fence where grass never took sklater. Eli digs holes with care. He got the part-time slot and keeps his grades up because Ruth appears at exactly the right moments with a raised eyebrow and a sandwich. Profit sharing expands and starts to feel baked in. We add a safety bonus tied to weekly strap checks. A scar should make you smarter. Truck 17's radio still hisses. But now it finds a station with weather and jazz compromise. Pop would have liked. Bluefin prints our statement on their board. 2 clients renew early. A new bakery on Lighthouse asks if we can handle dawn deliveries. We can. The house quiets. Inventory complete. Greenhouse breathing. Basil sprouts. Rosemary just holds. Grief moves its furniture from the middle of the room to the wall. It still lives here. It just stops blocking the door. Not everyone adjusts. A glossy magazine runs a sympathy piece on estranged Harrises. Using a photo of Celeste at a gala, Chin lifted. I don't read it. Ruth shreds it before I get home. Tomas frames a snapshot of Pop in a beanie instead and hangs it in the kitchen. Problème civil. Dylan texts coffee. He shows up in a Marina hoodie. Hair shorter. Eyes clearer. Night classes. He says. Embarrassed and proud. Spreadsheets. Ship scheduling. Patterns make sense when you're not gambling. I'm glad. I say. The door to honest work is heavy at first. Then it swings. He looks at his hands. I can't undo what I did, but I cannot do it again. That's a start. I ask him to tell the strap story at the next safety meeting. He winces. Then nods. Okay. Celeste calls once. I let it go to voicemail. Sweetheart, I miss my daughter. I'm very ill. She says. Nora checks, she isn't. We send one sentence through council, we wish you health. Boundaries remain. A month later, Victor emails Camila requesting a tour to mend fences. She forwards it to Nora. Nora returns the consent order with a line highlighted. No commentary. Procedure is a language he understands. Even if he hates it. One crisp morning, I carry the ledger to the greenhouse and lay it by the basil. The red ribbon is frayed. I add a page in my messy hand, profit sharing expanded. Safety bonus added. Fund launched. House intact. Not legal. A family record. We host the first scholarship ceremony in the yard. Not a ballroom folding chairs between pallets. String lights overhead. Ruth's lemon loaf on paper plates. Families clap like church. Camila speaks 3 minutes. Perfect. Tomas melts into the back row. Content to watch. Eli drives by on a forklift with a bow tied to the roll cage and everybody laughs. I keep my remarks short. This place runs because you show up in bad weather. I tell the crew. Edie and Bernard built it that way. We'll keep building. Teach what we know. And protect what protects us. Applause rises and settles like tide on rocks. I stand a moment longer by the pallets. Feeling peace that doesn't come from winning. It comes from staying. By Tuesday, a sophomore slides into my counseling office and whispers that her parents use money like a leash. They say I'll fail if I don't obey. You might fail sometimes. I say, people do. But you'll fail yourself if you hand them your map. I give her resources, legal aid, therapists, a boundary worksheet. Nora helped me write, define family by behavior, not claims. Lock one door. See how the room changes. She leaves a fraction taller. I sit a while after, grateful my two worlds don't fight each other anymore. At sunset, I walk the dock road home. The air tastes like salt and bread from the new bakery. Gulls stitch sky to water with messy white thread. The bungalow glows through cypress. Inside, the lamp by Nana's chair makes a circle of gold. The scarf lies folded on the arm, not clenched in my fist. I open the journal's back and write a question for whoever comes next. When it was your turn to hold the line, did you? The house breathes. The harbor hums. Somewhere, a truck shifts into gear. Headed up the hill with fish on ice and a driver whose name I know. Pop used to say the bay keeps its own time. He was right. It doesn't ask permission to rise. It just does. So did we. Story 3. The Frankfurt deal was finally closed. 6 brutal days of negotiations. 3 hours of sleep per night. And I'd secured the European expansion my boss had been chasing for years. My body ached from the 9-hour flight home. But adrenaline kept me upright as I steered the rental car through my parents' quiet Denver suburb. I'd promised Mom I'd stop by before heading to my apartment. She'd want the details. Maybe fuss over me. Maybe load me up with leftovers. The sun was sinking, painting the houses along Birch Lane in gold when I turned onto my parents' street. For the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe. Dad had finally trimmed the bushes that used to crawl over the garage. A small miracle. I smoothed my charcoal skirt, winced at my pinching pumps, and clicked the remote. The garage door creaked upward, then my heart plummeted. The space was empty. Not just empty, vacant. Stripped. No gleaming black Challenger where I'd left it. Just the lawnmower and a few rusting garden tools. My suitcase thudded to the concrete as the remote slipped from my hand. No. 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 The words clawed out of my throat as I stumbled into the house, pulse roaring in my ears. The kitchen was too quiet. Around the oak table sat Mom, Dad, and my younger sister Sloane. Their faces wore the guilty stiffness of people caught rehearsing excuses. Avery. Honey. Mom began, voice coated in sugar. Don't overreact. Where's my car? My voice cracked. Low and sharp. Sloane's chin lifted. Her tone practiced from years of breezy entitlement. It's just temporary. Lena, I'll pay it back. Pay what back? Dad finally spoke, still staring at his hands. We took it to Cornerstone Pawn. 45,000. The room tilted. You did what? It's a loan. Sloane rushed in. Not a sale. My cosmetics line is revolutionary. Once it launches, you'll get your car back with interest. Her words blurred into noise. Memories flashed instead. Grandpa's calloused hands guiding mine over an engine when I was 9. His voice steady. Cars are more than machines. Lena. They're proof of patience. Proof of dreams solid enough to touch. Buying that Challenger after 6 years of 70-hour work weeks had been more than a purchase, it was validation. A visible symbol that my sacrifices hadn't been meaningless, and they'd pawned it like a spare toaster. That wasn't yours to touch. I whispered. Mom's lips thinned. Family helps family. You make plenty of money. Sloane deserves her chance. You forged my title. Used my spare key. My chest burned. That's fraud. Dad flinched. Mom stayed rigid. Sloane twirled her hair. Defiance faltering. My phone buzzed. A notification from my insurance company, lien placed against vehicle. The words stabbed through my fog. This wasn't just betrayal. It was criminal. I turned to the door. You have 30 days. I said evenly. Get it back or I press charges. Mom gasped. Charges against your own family. Family doesn't steal from each other. I slammed the door behind me. Their stunned faces etched in my mind. The next morning, I stood inside Cornerstone Pawn. Blazer buttoned tight like armor. The air reeked of desperation and cheap pine cleaner. The man behind the counter, Gordon, slid the contract across the glass. Loan amount 45,000. Fees 3. I skimmed the fine print. Every finance class I'd ever taken clicking into place. 3,000 in fees, and if it isn't repaid, 35 days. Auction. He tapped the clause with one thick finger. Payment deadline October 3rd. My eyes froze on the signature line. My name curved across it, but not mine. Too stiff. Missing the upward flick I always left on the last letter. This isn't my signature. Gordon's jaw tightened. If you're alleging fraud, I'm stating it. I slid my license across the glass. Compare them. He examined it. Unease spreading across his face. I'll need to involve my manager. Please do. And while you're at it, pull the footage. Because I was in Frankfurt, Germany. Minutes later, the truth sat heavy in my chest. My parents hadn't just betrayed me. They'd committed a felony. Back home, I pulled the family photo album from the shelf. Kendra's 16th birthday lavish. Professional photographer. Cake taller than her. My 16th absent. I'd been working weekends at the mall to save for college. Kendra's graduation limousine. Champagne. My own college ceremony. Empty chairs where mom and dad should have been. They claimed flight delays. Miraculously, they'd made it to Kendra's dance recital the next day. The pattern screamed from every page. Years of sacrifice erased in favor of her spotlight. The phone rang. Uncle Ray. I heard what they did. Your mom called me first. Tried to spin it. Said you're overreacting. Lena. This isn't right. His voice steadied me more than I expected. When we hung up, I sat in silence. The album still open on my lap. The pictures blurred. My throat raw. I wasn't just fighting for a car. I was fighting for the respect I'd never been given. And for once, I wasn't going to let them bury it under family comes first. Cornerstone had given me 35 days. By the time I uncovered the forged signature, 10 were already gone. That left 25. Every hour felt like sand slipping through my fists. Dad tried the bank first. He came home with a folder of forms, his shoulders sagging. They'll approve a home equity line, he said. But it'll take 2 weeks. 2 weeks, half my countdown swallowed by paperwork. Meanwhile, Sloane listed her BMW online. She took glossy photos, edited them until the paint looked like liquid glass, then posted with hashtags about simplifying. The truth was obvious. No one bit until she slashed the price. And a college kid handed her a cashier's check. Watching her smile through clenched teeth as she surrendered the keys, I felt no satisfaction. Just the bitter symmetry of her losing a car to save the one she stole. Mom pulled velvet boxes from the top drawer of her dresser. Grandma's silver candlesticks. A pearl necklace Dad had given her years ago. She wrapped them carefully in tissue. At Fletcher's Antiques. The clerk barely looked before offering $3,000. Mom nodded. Lips tight. For my part, I broke into my emergency savings. 6,000 vanished with a few clicks. It didn't feel like helping. It felt like throwing water at a fire that refused to die. Uncle Ray added 5,000, scribbling the check like it pained him. Family helps family, he muttered. But his eyes locked on Dad. Not by stealing, by paying. Together, we scraped 15,000, enough for the pawn shop to pause the auction clock. I carried the stamped deposit receipt back like a sacred object. That night, I collapsed on my couch, phone buzzing with congratulatory texts about Frankfurt. My colleagues thought I was celebrating. Instead, I stared at the receipt, knowing we'd only bought time. A week later, I spotted Sloane across the mall food court. No designer jacket. No glittering nails. Just black slacks. White blouse. And a cheap tote. She hesitated outside Nordstrom's employee entrance, then vanished inside. That night she called. 8 hours on my feet, she said softly, smiling at people who treat you like furniture. Is this what you've done all these years? Yes. I used to call you boring. Thought you didn't know how to live? A Pause. Turns out, you knew how to survive. Her words landed heavier than I wanted them to. I had no reply. Mom wasn't adjusting as easily. She found stacks of papers in Sloane's drawer, unpaid credit cards, buy now, pay later accounts, personal loans, nearly 80,000 in debt. She sat at the kitchen table with them spread like funeral programs. We had no idea. She whispered. You never asked? I said. Dad stared at the bills, his face hollow. For once, he didn't defend her. As the final deadline crept closer, Cornerstone called. A new buyer had offered cash for my Challenger. First full payment would take it. Dad begged for 2 days. The pawnbroker was unmoved. Panic ripped through us. We were 3,000 short. Mom sold her diamond earrings. I maxed out my last credit line. Sloane drained the remainder of her savings. We still didn't make it. That night, the house was silent. Plates of food sat untouched. The air was heavy with defeat. Then the doorbell rang. Uncle Ray stepped in. Checkbook in hand. Family helps family, he said again. But this time the words rang clean. He filled the gap without hesitation. The next morning, we all crowded into the bank like witnesses at a trial. Dad's hand shook as he signed the wire. The manager's keyboard clicks were louder than my pulse. The clock on the wall inched toward noon. At 11:42, the confirmation popped on the screen, payment received. The air left the room in one collective exhale. That afternoon, I walked into Cornerstone. Receipt in hand. The pawnbroker slid the keys across the counter. Cold metal touched my palm. Heavier than ever. Outside, the Challenger gleamed. Polished to showroom shine. It should have felt like triumph. Instead, my chest was hollow. I traced the hood with trembling fingers. Grandpa's words whispered back, it's what they represent that matters. Right now, the car represented sacrifice twisted into betrayal. And a debt that stretched far beyond money. I started the engine. The roar filled my chest. But the relief never came. The Challenger sat safe in my garage again. But peace didn't ride home with it. Every time I looked at the keys, I remembered the forged signature, the pawn ticket, the lies. A car can be polished back to perfection. Trust can't. Sunday dinner came anyway. Mom's text read steaks at 5. Dad's grilling. Like nothing had happened. I thought about refusing. But silence would have screamed louder. I typed back, I'll be there. The house smelled of rosemary and smoke when I walked in. Dad stood by the grill. Spatula frozen midair when he saw me. Mom twisted a dish towel in the doorway. Sloane arrived late. Sunglasses hiding swollen eyes. We sat like strangers pressed into a play. Props and all. For minutes. The only sound was the scrape of forks. I sliced my steak into neat cubes. The knife's rhythm keeping me from exploding. Finally, Mom spoke. Sloane's having a rough time. Everyone stumbles. What matters is family. I sate my knife down. This isn't about stumbling. It's about theft. Dad's voice was gravel. We thought we were giving her a chance. At my expense? I kept my tone even. Sharp as glass. You didn't just take a car. You took what it represented. 6 years of sacrifice. Mom flinched. It's just a vehicle. No. My chest burned. It was proof. Proof I hadn't wasted my 20s buried in spreadsheets. Proof Grandpa's faith in me meant something. The table sank into silence until the doorbell rang. Dad returned with Uncle Ray behind him. He didn't wait for pleasantries. He sat beside me. Arms crossed. What were you thinking? Victor Ray demanded. His eyes cut from Dad to me. Show them. I pulled a folder from my bag. Documents slid across the wood title records. Fraudstatutes. Pawn shop regulations. This is a felony, I said flatly. Titelfraud. Identity theft. You could face prison. Mum's fast drained. You wouldn't. I don't want to. But you need to understand what you did. Dad's eyes glistened with something I hadn't seen before: shame. Real and heavy. What have we done to you? To us? Sloane finally removed her glasses. Mascara streaking. It's my fault. I pushed them. I told them you'd forgive me once the business worked. I never thought it would collapse so fast. Ray leaned forward. So what's the plan? Because Cornerstone won't be the last bill breathing down your neck. I exhaled. We already saved the car. Now we deal with what comes next. 48,000 doesn't vanish. Someone's paying it back. Dad's hands trembled on the table. Mom dabbed her eyes. Sloane looked down at her bitten nails. No more speeches. I said, from here on, promises are written, legally binding. The next day, I sat across from Rachel Holman, a sharp-eyed attorney recommended by Ray. She skimmed the folder I'd carried like a weapon. You've got grounds for charges, she said. Fraud, forgery, identity theft, all serious. I swallowed hard. I'm not ready to send my parents to prison. What else can we do? A repayment agreement, she replied. Enforceable in court. If they break it, you don't argue at the dinner table, you go straight to collections. It gives you leverage. That night, I called Dad. If you mean to make this right, we'll put it in writing. 2 years. Monthly payments. Interest. No excuses. There was a long pause. Then his voice. Rough. We'll sign. A week later, we gathered again. But this time around, contracts. Not roast chicken. Rachel sat at the head of the table, pen tapping against her pad. Dad signed first, his hand shaking but steady enough. Mom signed next, whispering, We'll honor this. Finally, Sloane picked up the pen. Her eyes met mine for the first time without defiance. I'll pay back my share, she said. It won't be fast, but it'll be real. When the last signature dried, Rachel gathered the pages into a neat stack. Now it's law, she said simply. I tucked the contract into my bag, its weight steadier than any apology. For the first time since that empty garage, I felt the ground shift. The balance of power was no longer hidden in guilt trips or favors. It was written in ink. That night, back in my apartment, I stared at the Challenger through my window. Its paint caught the streetlight, glossy and black. Grandpa's words came back again. It's what they represent that matters. Maybe now, finally, it could represent something new, my boundaries. Carved not with pleas but with signatures. And maybe, just maybe, it could carry me forward instead of chaining me to the past. The contracts were signed, but paper didn't erase history. Every time my parents' names sat beside mine in black ink, I felt both relief and bitterness. They finally acknowledged what they'd done, but only because I'd forced them. For a few weeks, the payments arrived as promised. Small transfers at first, but steady. Notifications pinged on my phone like proof that maybe this family could learn. I tried to let it soften me, but I never let my guard down. Then Mom called one evening. Her voice hushed. Lena, we found more. More what? Loan papers. In Sloane's things. credit cards, buy now, pay later accounts, personal loans, almost $80,000. I pressed my forehead against the cold window. So she didn't just gamble with my car. She gambled with her whole future. We had no idea. Mom whispered. You never asked? I replied. Dad's silence on the other end spoke louder than any words. The next Sunday, we gathered for a family reunion. Cousins, aunts, neighbors, all packed into the backyard. Picnic tables creaked under potato salad and beer cans. For a while, it almost felt normal, until the whispers started. Aunt Patricia cornered me near the grill. Wine glass sloshing. You've made your point, Lena. Time to let it go. Family needs harmony. Before I could answer, Uncle Ray appeared at my side. Steady as stone. No harmony without accountability, he said flatly. Then Sloane did something I never expected. She stepped forward, her voice trembling but loud enough to silence the yard. I manipulated them, she said. I told Mom and Dad to pawn Lena's car. I thought she'd forgive me once my business worked. But I was wrong. They chose to betray her. We're all accountable. The air shifted. Aunt Patricia's mouth opened, then snapped shut. Cousin Mike gave me a slow, solemn note. For once, the family's eyes weren't on me as the serious one. They were on Sloane, watching her admit the truth. It didn't erase the damage, but it cracked the silence that had always protected her. Later that night, Mom tried again. Will you leave us a spare key for the Challenger just in case of emergency? I held her gaze until the request shriveled in the air. No, not anymore. Boundaries aren't explained. They're lived. Meanwhile, Dad's overtime shifts took a toll. His knees were swollen, his face drawn. Mom sold more jewelry. Heirlooms she once swore she'd never part with. Sloane kept showing up at her retail job, cheeks flushed from standing on her feet all day. The effort mattered, but the math was brutal. Every time I checked the repayment ledger, it felt like staring at a mountain that refused to shrink. One night, Dad sat beside me on the porch, the summer air heavy with cut grass. We failed you long before we took your car, he said, his voice raw. We praised Sloane's dreams and dismissed yours. You never asked for much, so we thought you didn't need much. The words cut deep. Not because they were harsh, but because they were true. I had carried the family's weight quietly, and they had mistaken silence for strength. I didn't answer. Some confession don't need replies. 2 weeks later, Cornerstone called again. A buyer was sniffing around. Cash in hand. First full payment locks the deal, the broker said flatly. Panic returned like a shadow I thought we'd shaken. We scrambled once more. Mom sold her diamond earrings. I maxed out another credit line. Sloane handed over the last of her savings. Still, we were short. That night, the house felt like a tomb, until the doorbell rang. Uncle Ray stepped in. Checkbook already open. Family helps family, he said again. But this time with no irony. He filled the gap without hesitation. The next morning, we crowded into the bank again. Dad's hand trembled as he signed the wire transfer. The clock ticked toward noon. At 1142, the confirmation popped on the screen. Payment received. We exhaled as one. When I returned to Cornerstone, the pawnbroker slid the keys across the counter. The Challenger gleamed in the lot, detailed and shining, like nothing had happened. It should have felt like victory. Instead, it felt like ash. I slid into the driver's seat, fingers tracing the wheel. The engine rumbled to life, steady and strong. Tears blurred the road as I pulled away. The car was home, but the story wasn't finished. The Challenger was back in my garage, safe under its own alarm system. But the house I grew up in felt like a stranger's teeple. The contracts had created order, but not peace. Trust wasn't something you could wire transfer or notarize. It had to be lived, day by day. The first repayments landed on schedule. Notifications chimed on my phone. Small amounts but steady. For a while, I let myself believe. Then reality cracked the surface again. Mom discovered more of Sloane's debt credit cards tucked into handbags. Installment accounts she'd never mentioned. Another personal loan in collections. The total was staggering. Almost $80,000. Mom whispered as she held the papers, her face pale. You wanted me to leave them a spare key. I reminded her quietly. Would you trust them with yours? She didn't answer. Family dinner resumed with forced cheer. Dad carved the roast while Mom poured wine, pretending things were normal. But the elephant sat heavy between us. It wasn't until dessert that Dad spoke. We're trying. Lena. The overtime. The payments. I know it doesn't fix what we did. I set my fork down. It's not about money. It's about respect. For once, I need you to understand that. Sloane shifted in her seat, eyes down. I do understand. More than I used to. Her words were soft, almost fragile. I studied her, waiting for the smirk that always followed. It never came. The real test came at the next family reunion. Relatives crowded the backyard. Laughter loud. Gossip louder. But the whispers about Lena taking things too far were sharp enough to hear. Aunt Patricia cornered me near the potato salad. You've made your point, she said, glass tilting in her hand. Time to let it go. Family needs harmony. Before I could respond, Uncle Ray stepped in. Harmony without accountability is just silence, he said flatly. Then Sloane surprised me. She stood in front of everyone, her voice shaking but steady. I manipulated them. I told Mom and Dad to pawn Lena's car. I thought she'd forgive me after. But I was wrong. They betrayed her. We're all responsible. The yard went silent. Patricia blinked, speechless. Cousin Mike gave me a nod that carried weight. For once, the spotlight was on Sloane not as the golden child, but as the one admitting failure. It didn't heal the wound, but it shifted the ground. Weeks passed. Dad kept grinding through night shifts, his knees swollen. Mom pawned more jewelry. Sloane clocked retail hours, her manicures stripped down to bare nails. And me, I kept my boundaries. When Mom asked again about a spare key for the Challenger, I met her eyes until she looked away. No, I said simply. Respect lives in small moments. At work, my boss Palmer pulled me aside. You've been carrying a lot, he said. But I've also seen how steady you've been under pressure. Frankfurt proved that if you want the director track, keep this up. For the first time in months, I felt something like hope. My career was still mine, untangled from their chaos. One evening, I found Sloane waiting outside my apartment. She looked smaller, dressed in plain clothes, her hair pulled back. I'm sorry, she said before I could speak. Not just for the car. For years of treating you like the boring one. I see now you were the strong one. Her voice wavered. Earning something feels different than taking it. I studied hair. For once, there was no entitlement in her eyes. Just tired honesty. Keep proving it, I said finally. She nodded. The repayments continued. Not enough to erase the debt quickly, but steady. And steady mattered more than grand gestures. The Challenger sat in its locked space, gleaming under the fluorescent light. Every time I touched the keys, I reminded myself this isn't about a car. It's about drawing a line in ink and refusing to let anyone cross it again. A year had passed since the day I found the empty garage. Seasons had rolled by. Repayments had stacked up month after month, and the Challenger still sat safe in its own locked bay. The car was back, but it wasn't the same. Neither was I. Dad finally built a separate structure for it. A small garage with its own alarm system. He handed me the code, his voice low. Only you know this one. His eyes carried no expectation. Just a quiet plea for trust. Mom had changed too. She asked now. About everything. Would you mind if I borrow your jacket? Can I use this pan? The questions were small, but they mattered. Each one an acknowledgement that my belongings weren't community property anymore. And Sloane, she was no longer the girl in designer heels and endless credit lines. She worked retail, kept a budget, and sent me $300 each month. Not much compared to what she owed, but it came like clockwork. Last month she showed me her spreadsheet, pride flickering in her voice. Earning feels different, she said, than being handed it. Uncle Ray rode shotgun one weekend. He patted the dashboard as we wound through the mountains. Your grandfather would be proud, he said. Not just of the car, of the woman you've become. His words sat with me as the Rockies unfolded ahead. Peaks glowing gold in morning light. The Challenger hummed beneath me. Steady. Alive. Sometimes I drove out to the overlook, parked at the edge, and sat in silence. I remembered Grandpa's words. Cars are just steel and chrome. It's what they represent that matters. For years, the Challenger had represented sacrifice, then betrayal. Now, finally, it represented boundaries. It represented survival that had turned into respect. One afternoon, I brought the finance class I volunteer with to see it. 20 young women crowded around, eyes wide. Melissa, a shy teenager, lingered after the others left. My dad used to work on old cars, she said. Before the divorce, my mom sold his tools to pay for my sister's dance lessons. He never forgave her. I let her sit in the driver's seat, her hands light on the wheel. Her smile stretched wider than the windshield. Dreams need protecting, I told her, echoing Grandpa's wisdom. And so do you. The last family gathering felt different too. There was no showy meal, no forced laughter, just Dad grilling, Mom setting out plates, Sloane helping without complaint. When I finished eating, Dad led me to the garage. It'll never be enough, he said, his eyes tired but sincere. But I want you to know we're trying. I know, I said. It was the truth. Forgiveness wasn't complete. It might never be, but there was effort, and effort mattered. On the anniversary of the Frankfurt deal, I drove into the mountains alone. The road curved like a ribbon, trees spilling toward the sky. I rolled down the windows, let the wind rush through my hair, and pressed the accelerator. The engine roared, a sound that filled my chest with something I hadn't felt in a long time. Freedom. For the first time since I was 9 years old. Standing beside Grandpa as he leaned over an engine. I wasn't just surviving. I was living. The road stretched open ahead, wide and endless. And this time, I was driving it on my own terms.